Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome. You are now tuned into. I think you're tuned into Simply Cyber Live, your go-to spot for all things cybersecurity. I'm your host, Gerald Auger. I'm wicked pumped to be here today. And whether you're joining us live or catching up later on replay, you're in for a great show. What's up, James Driscoll, Alyssa Lem, the Pain, Gary Sturgiotis up in here. A lot of squad members loving it. Today, we're diving into the critical world of operational technology and industrial control systems, more commonly known as OT and ICS. And we'll be discussing two amazing initiatives that y'all need to know about in this niche, the ICS Village and Hack the Capital. We'll be unpacking the latest in cybersecurity threats and how these innovative initiatives are shaping our workforce and our defensive strategies. And folks, we have what is undeniably the perfect guest to guide us through this conversation. Today, we're joined by Bryson Bort, a legend in the cybersecurity field. Bryson is the founder and CEO of Scythe and chairman of Grimm. His journey into cybersecurity has been nothing short of remarkable, from leading an elite R&D division that contributed to our national security to supporting the DoD and the intelligence community as a deputy CTO. Not to mention Bryson's military service as a U.S. Army officer, where he supported operations from Bright Start or Iraqi Freedom. And he's not just a strategist, but he's got his elbows are all like the shirt's pulled up way past the elbows. He's got his hands all up in the muck. He's a hands-on leader who's been in the thick of it. We do promote engagement. If you're new here, I see a lot of hashtag Team SC. So a bunch of regulars, you guys all know the drill. But if you are new here, we love promoting engagement and knowledge share. So if you have a question for Bryson, throw it in chat. Start it with a Q so I know that it's a question for Bryson and not just you commenting on like Gary's beard or something. And we'll be sure to get it right to him and get it answered as quickly as possible. So squad members, do me a favor. If you're a squad member, drop your emote of Oprah in chat, our loved Oprah emote, or just put your hands together if you're not a squad member. Please welcome to the stage a friend of Simply Cyber, Bryson Bort. What's up, Bryson? How are you, man?
Every day is a holiday.
Every day is a holiday. Guys, I got to tell you, Bryson said that when we first got on the stream together in the green room. Get ready to hear that a lot, because I'm going to steal it. I love that. Like, I'm just curious, like, where did that come from? And is like, why'd you adopt that as your initiative, like as your moniker?
So why did it become my go-to phrase? I guess I've been doing it around 20 years, and I love it because it's funny. It always gets a laugh, and there's a range to it, right? I can be like, every day's a holiday, and everyone's like, oh, he's in a good mood, like it's a holiday. I want some of that energy. And then I get, every day is a holiday, and it's like, oh, because you know what? Sometimes it rains on your holiday too.
That's true. That's actually pretty nice. Like a lot of versatility there, flexibility. Very cool. I like it. So you see all those hashtag Team SCs coming in. Very cool. I told Bryson before we went live that Team SC is how we raid other people's streams. He found that very cool. So we're already +1 in the cool column with Bryson. So Bryson, let's get into it right away. So ICS Village, you're the founder. What exactly? Co-founder, not to take anything away from your other co-founders. What exactly, why did you found it? I guess I almost feel like you want to say, why did you find it? But like, that's not right. Why did you found it? And what's really the mission with ICS Village?
So first, I'd like to give a shout out to Root at the University of Tampa. I lectured there a few weeks ago, and I understand they are big fans of Simply Cyber. So hey, everybody, I told you I'd give you the shout out. There you are. Glad you're joining and keep on listening. Yep, look, shout out to Root. I co-founded the ICS Village, which is actually a 501c3 nonprofit. I know some folks get kind of confused because ICS Village shows up in a lot of different events, and people didn't realize it's actually an ongoing nonprofit that I did with Tom Van Norman. So we're the two co-founders that did it. And it really just started out of a hacker passion for let's throw industrial control systems together and see what happens. And the reason we actually turned it into a nonprofit is because it did really start as a pursuit to passion. And if any of you have ever done that, you understand that gets expensive in two ways. One is time, the other is money. And so Tom and I were single-handedly funding everything, which at the time years ago was DEF CON and RSA. And we realized there probably needed to be a better way to do this and to grow and scale the organization so it could be more than me and Tom. And good news, today it is. We have a lot of corporate sponsors who help make this all happen. We're at multiple events. Part of what precipitated this is we even have our own conference that's coming up in a few weeks that I wanted to talk about. There we go, Hack the Capitol. This is our 7th annual Hack the Capitol. It's a policy conference. New this year, we also built a workforce development program. So last year, the Gula Foundation gave us a private philanthropic grant with the mission that we are building industrial control system kits so that folks don't need to do the 4-year degree to get into this space. Why don't we make this an apprenticeship? Why don't we make this a trade? And everyone keeps talking about it. And the National Security Directorate came out with this as one of their pillars in their strategy, but with no funding and nobody actually doing anything. So we're like, well, let's see what we can do. So on the 29th, we're inviting students and vets to come into the debut and the pilot of hands-on training so you can learn about industrial control systems. And then on the 30th and the 31st is the policy conference. And I highly encourage you to attend that. We will have a virtual option. Currently, the registration is only for in-person, but we will have it virtual for you to be able to watch. And I know a lot of folks, yeah, that's the Workforce Development Day track. So that's going to be on the 29th in Arlington.
Yep.
Virginia.
And just so everybody knows, I dropped a link to the landing page, to this page in chat. This is the link right here. It's too long a link to drop in chat, but this is where you need to go.
Yeah, so that's free for students and for military vets. It is size limited, so highly encourage you to sign up sooner rather than later. You do have to be in person for that one. That one is not virtual. We do work with hands-on physical equipment, industrial control systems to do the training. The policy conference, like I said, will be in person and we'll have a virtual option. So you'll be able to stream. And I think a lot of people kind of get turned off or scared or intimidated, eyes glaze over when you hear policy. This isn't going to get into the mundane elements of policy. It's more around facilitating conversation about things we care about in society that ties to critical infrastructure, and getting to hear that from agency directors, members of Congress, and then other really smart folks in the community between government, industry, and academia.
Wow, that's going to be awesome. So just so I understand, and for people listening right now, the audience that would benefit from attending this event, I know you said students can get in. I mean, is it for people who want to work in OT, people who are working in cyber in general? Is it for lawmakers? Like what's the general audience that would be most served by wanting to go to this?
I would say all of the above. So the first realization is everybody works in OT, whether you realize it or not.
Okay.
Where does our electricity, where does our water come from? I mean, in your personal home and your private office, you depend on critical infrastructure, building management systems, physical security controls. Those all are parts of industrial control systems. So I think to stay ignorant of it is a choice, but it's not, I think, a good one. And so that's, again, goes back to a lot of where I was complimenting on why I think this webcast is so phenomenal in its ability to reach out and communicate on these concepts with the community. That's the same kind of mission we're trying to do with the nonprofit. If you don't know what a programmable logic controller is, no problem. You come to one of our things, we got you.
No, I love that. Now, so for people who wanted to, or like, curious, maybe they are getting prepped for this event, which by the way is Wednesday, May 29th, and then Thursday, May 30th and 31st is the Hack the Capitol piece. So it's just about 3 or 4 weeks away right now. There is a virtual option as well, but the hands-on training, I would assume you'd want to be there in person. So it's going to be there in Arlington, Virginia. So you Maryland, DC folks, and obviously Virginia folks are kind of in the wheelhouse there. Bryson, if someone wanted to, is getting like, I guess, home labs or getting access, dabbling, learning, is that accessible? Because I mean, obviously OT is, cyber physical systems, so you can't necessarily simulate it, or maybe you can.
That gets into why industrial control systems, I think, remain a little more opaque to most folks. It's not the kind of thing you just grab at a store and have as a consumer product. Pretty much anybody who's accessing this has a computer. So you're like, well, I know Windows, which means I understand basic networking and I can learn things. You can't really do that with embedded devices. It doesn't work the same way. You do need physical touch. And coincidentally, we at the nonprofit, with me as the host, we do a monthly podcast called Hack the Plant.
Ooh.
And we just came out with an episode with Sharon Bryson, Israeli. He is a vulnerability research scientist at Clarity. And we talk through how he broke into becoming a vulnerability researcher into industrial control systems. Yep, there we go. And it's the top one there, the ICS hacker. And in that, we talk about how did he learn to do that? Because he didn't start it and he wasn't taught it. And then we talked about how do you set up your own lab? In short, the high-level recommendation, go to eBay, find the cheapest industrial control system you can find. Typically will be a programmable logic controller, which is just a simple, stupid device. And when I say stupid, I mean it has very little independent capability. Pretty much does what it's told. There you go, programmable logic controller processor.
Here's the dumbest one I could find.
Yeah, well, cheapest, right?
Cheapest, yeah.
So they're usually a few $100.
Okay. So there you go. So that podcast, is that part of the ICS Village as well, or is that separate?
No, that is officially part of the ICS Village. We're in our 4th season, so we've been doing it monthly for going on our 4th year. This year is done in collaboration with the Institute for Security and Technology. IST is best known for the ransomware task force. So if you've heard about them, they stood up about 2 years ago in a public-private collaboration to help bring down ransomware. And they also advance a lot of technical and policy ideas. So their first report that came out of that, they had 48 recommendations, 24 of which have been implemented. So that's the think tank that we collaborate with for the podcast.
I love that. I dropped a link to the podcast there in chat. If you guys want to just flag it, don't leave the stream to go listen to the podcast, as desirable as that would be. And I will say, Bryson, Verizon data breach incident report just dropped yesterday, which is my favorite report of the year. And one of the findings was that ransomware has actually dipped down. Unfortunately, extortion has risen. So I don't know if the committee is going to start looking at ways to curb extortion, sadly. But no, it sounds like the work that y'all are doing over there is taking effect, and we're seeing the benefits and the impact from that work.
I hope what IST's work has had some small play in all of that.
Yeah. So if I can just take a step back for a minute. So you got you and what was your co-founder's friend's name?
Tom Van Norman.
Tom Van Norman. So you and Tom started ICS Village. Now, you kind of alluded to this at the beginning, and I said to you before stream started. Like, I thought ICS Village was a DEF CON village, right? And I thought that was like the extent of it. Can you kind of take us back and maybe explain what ICS Village is and like what is the dimensions of it? Because I know you have multiple events coming up and that have happened, some that recur annually. And I think it's fascinating. And I don't think it's crystal clear to the community.
Sure. So ICS Village, like I said, started off as a hacker passion project. There were several folks that were involved with that. And I want to say the initial idea was kind of dark tangent Jeff Moss at DEF CON saying, hey, why don't we do something on industrial control systems? And we put that together. And then in 2015, I want to say, is when we were invited to be a part of the sandbox at the RSA conference, which is next week. So since 2015, we've been a perennial part of that conference. And that was really it for a couple of years, because it was a lot of work to do both of those. And it was just me and Tom. We couldn't get permanent volunteers to help. We'd get folks who would show up at the events, be like, this is awesome. How can I help? And we'd be like, well, the amount of work it takes to show up here, we'd love you to be a part of that. And they'd all be like, disappear. No, yes. All right, well, back to the drawing board. And so we knew the demand was there. We just had to continue to keep going. We became a nonprofit, so we're an official 501c3. We're actually a corporation. Mm-hmm. And since then we've grown, right? So we talked about Hack the Capitol, which is our own policy conference with the 7th one we're doing now. We're at a lot of other events you can see off of our webpage. We really like B-sides. We did Puerto Rico and Charm, which is Baltimore. Don't remember what we have coming up in the fall, but after DEF CON is usually we'll have several conferences supporting there. If your local conference, hey, listener, you want to get involved with us, have them reach out to us about 3 to 6 months out, and we can start those discussions to bring our exhibit to you. We're happy to do that. That's part of what we're doing.
Oh, that is very cool. If we're running, besides Charleston, for example, or something, you want to get into that. I see you guys do a lot in Texas as well. HUSecCon and Texas Cyber Summit, both rather large events, which is very nice.
Well, and Texas, it has a lot of energy, so there's a large interest in it for the industry.
Oh, I guess it's easy to draw a straight line from there. So yeah, no, that's very cool. So, hey, I know I talk a lot in the community about, volunteering and networking, like professional networking and social networking. You ask for volunteers and people like, or whatever. But if I was to think like, oh, maybe I want to get involved, I want to collaborate, I want to network, but it's ICS Village. I'm not like, I live in, wherever, like there's no ICS, there's no energy power plant here. So I'm not going to volunteer because I don't have value for that. Like, is that a misconception that, I know you said earlier, everybody kind of takes advantage and leverages ICS, right? Or OT because of electricity and whatnot. But I think that there's a misconception that, I don't want to say like, aligning my horses or whatever to ICS Village, it doesn't make sense if I'm not going to work in ICS. Is that a myth, or could you dispel that and speak to it?
Well, first of all, you said there's no power plant there. I'm going to guess there is a power plant there. Your electricity is coming from somewhere. So I just thought that was funny. I wouldn't say it's about aligning horses. It's like anything in what we do, is the technology is constantly changing. My personal life philosophy is just continue to learn and follow the opportunities where they are. You don't know where they're going to go. I mean, 25 years ago, I didn't know I was getting into industrial control systems. I was an Army officer. I didn't even think that far. So pursue your passions, learn everything that is an opportunity. And I would say industrial control systems, again, are pervasive. The convergence of information technology and operational technology is only going to increase, which is why the security requirements are going to continue. So I know a lot of folks are very aware that the job market in tech has not quite been as booming in the last 2 years as it used to be. Well, here's a whole other adjacent space where that kind of knowledge is booming and is growing. It's needed. So from a job security perspective, on top of the learning perspective, I think it is. And then finally, you're in the environment whether you want to realize it or not. So you can just eat the steak inside the matrix, or you can understand how the matrix works.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I know it's bits and bytes coming in, but it's so good. Yeah, cipher with that line. So you had mentioned I was just an Army officer, and now you're, a leader in the OT-ICS space. You're consulting at the national level on federal policy, which is super cool, by the way, Bryson. How did you get into that? Did you just they drop you off the bus? They're like, you're out of the Army now, and you're like, oh, okay, here's a power plant. I'll walk in there and find a job.
It was my first. So I got hurt during the war. I was medically discharged as a captain. It was psychologically tough. I did not handle it well. I was broken. I was not only physically broken, but I was kind of psychologically broken. Everything that I had trained for my whole career at that time, everything was just suddenly gone. Yeah. And I was scared of the civilian world because I didn't know it. I didn't understand it. I'd been in the Army for 8 years. I don't know how the real world works. And so I took the first job that I was offered, and it ended up being in a global aerospace and defense manufacturer. And so I told them in the interview, I said, I don't even know what the job title means. And they convinced me that I did, which probably says a sign of how desperate we both were. So, okay. But the point is, so I'm here in this job. I literally did not know what the job title meant, which translates to I really didn't know the job. Mm-hmm. And we worked in manufacturing. And I'm like, I might as well go learn about that. Why not? I mean, things that were even outside of my job scope, I would ask questions. I would walk the floor. And it was the first time that I saw, because I would go and talk to the IT group, and they're like, and I would ask them, like, do you know what this company does? And they're like, I don't know, like we make parts. Like, that's all you know. you've never walked the floor? And they kind of looked at me like, why would we walk the floor? Why would we learn how this stuff works? And I'm like, okay. And it's funny because that same philosophy, which has started to orient me to it, is still in vogue. Step one that I tell to anybody who's trying to work with this stuff: go and understand what it is you do and why they do it and how they do it. And it's even more ironic if you think about it, because that's where the revenue is being driven. That's where that company, that organization's mission or money is being made. Why wouldn't you go and learn that as best as possible? How do you think you can support it if you don't? So step one is always bring donuts. You need to bring presents, and you need to go and be humble. Be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me?
I love it. Humility, openness, like to be willing to learn. I agree 100% that, the desire to continue to push and learn is a trait that I think is almost, I'd go so far as to say a requirement to be successful in cybersecurity, just because it's everything changes so much. Even like ICS OT, that's an incredibly niche area of the industry, and it's still constantly changing with the way IT is being integrated into OT. And then finally, the business. I'm literally talking to this just so I can play the sound effect.
Straight cash, homie.
Like Randy Moss with a straight cash, homie. I don't know if you know that sound effect, Bryson, but hopefully you can hear the sound effects. Earlier today, I was on a stream playing the sound effects, and they didn't hear them, and I was like pausing oddly, waiting for sound effect to play, and they couldn't hear it. But understanding how the business makes money, that's like number one, because really, like, they don't care. The business doesn't care about cybersecurity. The business cares about making money, and how you help them do that helps you, right?
Yeah. Just since you mentioned Randy Moss, I remember seeing him play in college in 1998. I want to say he put up 5 or 6 touchdowns. It was just, he was a beast, and watching him just pretty much go, all he did was run that way. The quarterback threw the ball as high as possible. The guy caught it, touchdown, like over and over again.
Super athletic. He went to Marshall, didn't he?
Yeah, he went to Marshall. I want to say we lost 63-56. That was
right. So let's see, doing some quick math, that means Randy had 7 touchdowns.
He didn't score all the touchdowns, but I do remember that was roughly the score. And I remember watching him play. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a phenomenal 30 for 30 on Randy Moss. If you ever get it, I don't know if you like the 30 for 30 series, but there's a phenomenal one on Randy and like his upbringing and where he came from. Some questions from chat coming in. David Stewart wants to know, Bryson, what frameworks would you say are most important to touch if you're interested in OT from traditional cybersecurity? Great question.
Sure. So the NIST CSF still applies, understanding the 5 phases of defense.
Yes.
Identify, prevent, detect, respond, recover. I, as always, put my greater emphasis on detect and respond, because prevention is building a line in the sand that the ocean of an attacker comes and sweeps away, and you realize what worked and what didn't. And what didn't work is all that matters. And it happens over and over again, because it's not just a technical problem. Again, you mentioned the Verizon report. The Verizon report continues to show how much humans are a part of the weakness. Now, that's not to pick on users. That just shows the burden on us in security, that that's the way it works. And that's what attackers can continue to chain to take advantage of as they go through attack logic. The other one is, it's not really a framework, but is the Purdue model. So the Purdue model is a very simple model of showing the levels of IT to what should be a DMZ of your high-level shared services and industrial control systems, and then basically the lower level stuff that happens in operational technology. The key takeaway for me from Purdue is, 1, the value of segmentation and architecture. Mm-hmm. Absolutely critical. Oh, I get the thumbs up. It actually worked. It is such a big deal, because in IT, we grumble about vulnerability management and patching, but in OT, most of the time you can't do that. So you have to be able to mitigate risk around something that you can't directly address the risk on. For example, patching, which means that segmentation and that architecture is so important. The other part of that architecture also sets you up for appropriate fire breaks for, there you go.
The Purdue model is wicked complicated, but please continue.
Yeah. So this is where I'm simplifying it. This looks like gobbledygook. So those lower levels, right? If you think about it, you have clusters of these devices that are trying to create some output. And by output, we're not talking data. We're talking about physical things. So these, this CNC machine plus that engineering workstation plus this scale are all there to produce this part. And if there is an incident there, if there's something that happens there, I want only that subsystem, that little process, that sub-process to be affected. That's what we're talking about with east-west. The other thing that's over here, that's a laser printer, right, doesn't get affected if something happens. And so that's where architecture is able to establish basically these little sub-processes of outputs. And then north-south is when we're going up and down this Purdue model. The other thing that I would point to, but it's not really going to be accessible to the layperson, is ISA IEC 62443. This is the standard. It is a proprietary standard, right? Anytime you hear ISO or IEC, that means you have to pay for it. But the standard is the de facto standard for how to build product security, and they are coming out with a definitive cybersecurity framework for operational technology.
My goodness, that's awesome. Hopefully you guys all got that. A lot of interesting stuff. That Purdue model, that sounds like something that you should get familiar with. Like, it almost reminds me of, like, it's not exactly one-to-one, but like the OSI model, like understanding how a network works, like TCP/IP, understanding like just the concept of flowing. This model seems very valuable because it really does show both the OT and the IT pieces of the puzzle. There's a question from Jeremy Stevens in chat that's a nice follow-up, and I personally love the question. I'd love your thoughts. He wants to know, like, why are we even connecting industrial control systems to the internet in first place?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Hey, doesn't the internet make everything more secure? I always like to say, you can't hack what you can't touch, right? Making it on the internet sure makes it a lot easier to touch. It's the reason we don't have to physically go to a bank to rob it anymore, because the internet makes it much easier. So the best parallel I would be is, why did we go to the cloud? Because everything now in IT ties to the cloud. Economic utility. It is cheaper, convenient, easier for me to be able to provision resources, in this case, access to doing these things. So let's give another example. Your local water plant probably has a handful of people at most, right? It's not staffed with like 50 people. It's staffed probably with 2, 3, or 4 people. How do 2, 3, or 4 people manage that and actually go home and have a normal life? Remote access, right? I need to be able to have somebody who's on call who can, dial in from their home workstation to monitor something at 3 a.m. if there's an alert, as opposed to having to drive in. So the other thing I'd like to point out with remote access, because this really blows a lot of IT people's minds. A lot of manufacturers, vendors mandate in the contract that they will have remote access to their own devices. Think about that.
Yeah.
That'd be like in the IT world, that Microsoft is saying, hey, you're going to punch a hole in the firewall and we're going to be able to come in to directly touch your calendar. That's how it works in operational technology. You have third parties who contractually have to get access to their stuff. Why? Because from their view, this stuff is so sensitive, the ability to update it, monitor it, they want to be able to do it their way. And so that access is mandatory.
Yeah, I worked in healthcare for a number of years, and it was the same thing. And I don't know if it's the same in ICS, Bryson, but one thing that I saw a lot of that infuriated me was we would set up a VPN connection, B2B connection with the vendor so they could come in and remote into their stuff, but it would basically drop them on our internal network. It wasn't like they were restricted to just the machine that they needed to access. It was like, no, because it might switch IPs, it might move around. We'll just give them full access. And then it was basically just a YOLO situation over there. Now, I wanted to, I'll pull that up in just a hot minute. I have the ICS Village stuff up here. We were talking about things that'll blow your mind. We're talking about the Purdue stack. Now, I know you had this training coming up at the end of the May, but ICS Village does all sorts of training and workshops, right?
Yeah, so that's where the schedule shows the different events that we're doing. We are trying to create more virtual opportunities. That's really hard to do. Again, going back to the challenge with being able to emulate these devices.
Mhm.
at a realistic enough level, but is something we're hoping to do. The workforce development program that we're debuting on the 29th in Arlington. The idea there is that we're going to partner with other organizations. So, for example, we're in discussions with Bryson Cyber, if you've heard of them, with Eric Bayardo.
Yeah.
And the idea there is he's got a great ground game in different cities. We've got the curriculum. And so between marrying those two, being able to bring that as permanently available throughout the United States.
Oh, that's phenomenal. And yeah, Eric Bellardo, friend of Simply Cyber, and I love Races and what they're doing. I think actually someone in chat, or maybe it was, I thought it was this stream, maybe it was the last one. I've been on a couple today, was dropping Races love in chat. So that's super cool. Now, you had dropped a link to a YouTube video here. Oh boy. Oh wow, your beard is fierce in this video. Hold on one second. You guys are gonna love this. Wow, hold on, I gotta find my mouse.
Yeah, so that video was the biohacking village. Nina had me on to do a industrial control system overview in the medical environment. Yep. And as you can see, it was during COVID. So that's a crazy picture of me. I guess you're getting even for the picture I posted of us with your eyes closed during the stream.
Yes,
So,
yes, yep.
fair play. During COVID, I decided I wasn't going to cut anything because what was the point?
Yeah.
I have the champion ability to grow facial hair, as you can see here. That picture is like 5 months of growth.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Yeah, you look like a fable, like something you'd read in like a German fable book.
Well, if you Google Cyber Gandalf, you will see the final state of all of that. And then if you want to see something a little funny and a little educational, to shave it all off in 2021, I collaborated with a bunch of folks and we did the Great Shave. We raised tens of thousands of dollars for, I think you got to put Cyber Gandalf as one word.
I'm sorry. I did Cyber Gandalf Bryson. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, just Cyber Gandalf, one word.
I'm working on it, team.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not coming up so easily.
I probably have, children safe filters on or something.
I don't think that's how it works. Here you go. The first thing that showed up for me, of course, would be my own link.
Yeah, let's take a look. Oh, Tyler Ramsby's in chat. What's up, Tyler? Oh, okay. So let's check this out. Oh yeah. Okay, here we go, team. You're gonna love this. Let's go. And let me zoom in on it for you. That is, wow. That's a legit beard, huh?
That was a legit beard. And then here's where we shaved it all off. The best part about this, the way I did this, so I came out in a different character. So I started off as Cyber Gandalf. Yeah, there you can go with Ron and Cindy Gula. And this is a clip of it, so you can just quickly see my different characters. So there's me as Gandalf.
Oh my God.
What I would do is they had guests, and in between I would go and shave, and I would come out as a different character as I shaved it down.
Oh, like this is kind of like an Asian inspired, like a kung fu master kind of thing.
That was Cyber Samurai.
Samurai, yeah, okay. Oh, there we go, perfect.
See, you can see I cut the beard down, and then I did a top knot.
Dude, this is hilarious.
Thank you. I thought so. Drunken Pirate.
This is Drunken Pirate?
Yeah, it's Drunken Pirate. So you can see I shaved it down even further with the sideburns.
Dude, this is brilliant.
And then the final character is Lord Cyberbottom, which I think you've seen before. I've used him in some other things. The hardest part for Lord Cyberbottom, because again, I made this all up and I'd never done it before, was trying to get the mustache to curl. I didn't realize that was so hard. So we actually had to glue it to my face to make it work.
Oh my God. I love your commitment to the joke. Like, willing to do that. People are loving it in chat. That's hilarious. Like, way to take, something like, basically a COVID beard and not only do something fun with it, but raise money and have fun doing it. And yeah, just what a cool experience. That should get more play. More people should know about this.
I'm not really good at marketing this stuff, so I defer to you on how to do that.
Oh my God, I'm terrible at marketing too. I will tell you though, for those who are in chat that know, this is 100% a Magic the Gathering card right here. I don't know exactly what it would be. I'll leave that to the meme makers. But if you could, I'll drop a link in chat. This needs to be a Magic the Gathering card sooner than later, please. So we'll get you set up.
So obviously you can see the joke off of our swag store here, which is why it's sold out. You can't actually buy it.
$20,000.
So it was meant to be a comedic joke inside the swag store. However, the swag store does have lots of unicorn gear you can buy, and all the proceeds go to charity as well.
Oh, that is very nice. You're known for you know the unicorn look. Really quickly, if you don't know Bryson Bort, if this is your first time meeting him, first of all, as the intro said, he's just a wonderful person who gives to the community in a variety of ways. But he is known for the unicorn. You could see he's constantly been seen wearing basically a unicorn hoodie or onesie, depending on the event and the situation. And even actually, I guess even here you're speaking to a crowd and you just have like unicorn ear, or not ears, but you know what I mean? Horse ears. So he's a follow on Twitter for sure. It's Bryson Bort, one word, at Bryson Bort. I'll drop a link on that. So as far as the swag store, first of all, and hold on. I see we've actually got unicorn action right now. Very nice. So you probably answer this question all the time, Bryson. Why the unicorn? How did that come to be?
So my collaborated a graphic artist at Blizzard and came up with this, and I thought this was really cool. I mean, it's kind of like a textbook example of how to do a logo. It sticks in the mind. You remember it. It's memorable. And we would do an annual T-shirt contest at Grimm, which is actually where I first got into industrial control systems. I want to give a shout out to Atlas of Doom. If y'all know who he is, he's the one who really helped bridge that. And it's actually how we got into car hacking. So we were some of the first car hackers. We just didn't go public with it, which is what happened in 2015 with the Wired magazine article with Charlie and Chris. And so with these annual T-shirt contests at DEF CON, one year I came up with the idea of a Grim Reaper riding a unicorn because I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah, it is hilarious. I like it.
So in 2016, Target comes to me at Grimm and asks me to build basically a Cobalt Strike alternative. And I was like, huh. And then that's where I came up with the idea with Scythe is I wanted not to just build like a static implant that was functional. I wanted to build the ability for you to build any kind of implant, basically drive any kind of behavior. So you really would be behaviorally focused in the threat emulation. If you've ever heard the phrase adversarial emulation, I literally coined that. And the entire reason I coined it was because I kept trying to find word matches that nobody else was using and nobody else would steal yet. So I actually get credit for that. I made that up because it's why it's so clunky. Because if you think about it, it's an adverb plus it. Why would I do that? That's why I did it. So I've now created a product. Didn't know what the hell I was doing, to be honest, which was called Project Crossbow with Target. And I'm like, I mean, I had a really good logo for Grimm, but we got to come up with something that's not confusing. These unicorns, people are into the unicorns. And so I came up with this logo. So that was about 6 years ago. So I call it the Disney villain philosophy, right? Adults get the joke, kids think it's cute. And by the way, if you're at RSA, we're going to have the coloring books back. So if you've seen our coloring book, we came out with a new version that's going to be debuting again at RSA next week. So you're welcome to come grab one. Yeah,
I'm going to have to get some stickers for the laptop. I've been very, very selective about what stickers I put on the laptop, but you got to have stickers in the store, right? For sure. Oh,
yep. Here they are. Yeah, they're in there. Yep.
Yeah, I'll grab some.
Yeah.
Love it. Cool. And dude, as I asked you why the unicorn, I could see you go, like I've said this story 4,000 times and it will be 4,001. So I appreciate it, on top of everybody in chat who's absolutely, the hearts are pegging off. People are loving the backstory. So thank you, Bryson, for sharing that with us. So is Scythe, I mean, I know Scythe and Grimm are your companies and stuff, but do they support ICS Village and the work being done there? Is there overlap?
So Grimm is the consultancy. So Jen Tisdale, who lives in Detroit, actually, if anybody is in Detroit, I am going to be leading a private operational technology symposium next week. not next week, week after. I'm in RSA next week.
Okay.
Week afterward, it's going to be just me answering questions and talking through the threat landscape. It's basically I'm going to turn it into just mostly an open Q&A. So we're going to be doing a lot of free form consulting is probably the way I would look at it. So that's Graham, Offensive Security Services. Scythe is the product. Both of them play heavily into supporting the ICS Village. A lot of the Grim team helps volunteer and build out the Capture the Flag challenges. I would be remiss to not note there are many other volunteers who also do that with other organizations. If I'm giving another shout out, I would say Dragos with Rob Lee has been a huge supporter of the Village over the years. But there's others, Cymetis, Industrial Defender, Garland. We have a lot of folks who participate and help. But if you're interested in volunteering, please reach out to us at info@icsvillage.com. There's always a role. And even if you don't know something, bodies are important sometimes for volunteering. So it's a good way to learn and to participate and to help get back to the community.
I'll tell you for a fact, someone needs to man the front of the driveway gate. There's always a need for a body.
You want to get into our origin story now, don't you?
No, I won't. The story of how I first met Bryson is a good. Yeah. So really quick, Bryson hosted a party at his Airbnb at DEF CON a couple years ago. And
the Beetlejuice mansion.
Yeah, was it?
If you went inside, the cabinets were like painted like out of Beetlejuice.
Oh, okay. I didn't even notice that. From the front driveway, you couldn't see the cabinets. So basically, I show up and James McQuiggan at 35,000 feet had brought me in. James McQuiggan is part of like the Beer ISAC S4 ICS community. It doesn't matter. So I didn't have a ticket. It was like it was an invite only, not invite. You had to purchase a ticket, basically. Ticket was. We were doing that's right. We were doing a donation drive. I mean, like it was like $30 or something. James McQuiggan's in chat right now, by the way.
Just become best friends. Yep.
Good to see you, Bryson. Have fun at RSA. Coin call, Beer ISAC, Hack the Planet. If you want to network and meet awesome folks, go volunteer. Bring the origin story. So James McQuiggan was there. And literally I walk in and, I've never met Bryson. Bryson's got this mystique and air about him. And he's running around. And he stopped because we walked in and he's like, hello. And I'm like, hey, Bryson, I'm Jerry. Really nice to meet you. I want you to know I didn't buy a ticket, but I'm willing to help out. If there's something you need, just let me know. And he goes, perfect. I need you out front because the driveway to this house had like a gate you had to open and close. He's like, can you go out front and just open the gate when people need to come in and close it when they don't? I'm like, okay. So I go out. Bryson continue running around. And like after an hour, I like texted James McQuiggan. I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to like grab an Uber and get out of here. This party's kind of weak. And I think James talked to Bryson and Bryson's like, oh my God, like I completely forgot about that guy. And, came around and relieved me of my post as it were. And but we had a good time. I wasn't upset. I had some beers and hung out. And I think you smoked a cigar. Maybe I smoked a cigar. I don't know. It was a good time.
There was cigar smoking. There were several pools. So to twist the story a little bit, the introduction was a little different. So you were already there.
Yeah.
I was late and I was cooking for everybody. So I think we had like 80 people and I was manning the grill for everybody. And I was late because I like I said, I think I'd given 3 talks that day and I couldn't get out of downtown Vegas because I kept getting held at, you give a talk and people don't let you just go. Yeah. So you're talking, you're trying to get to the car and then you're in traffic and it's, 10 to 15 minutes off the strip to get there. So I walked in and James brings you up to me like, hey, Bryson, you need to meet this guy. And I'm like, not right now. I got to get this thing going. I'm late. I'm behind. People are hungry. And then I was like, go do that. And I had to go run and start cooking. And I just started cooking nonstop for like 120 minutes.
Yep.
And that's where I was like, oh shit, I forgot Jerry. Because I was just making food.
And you know what? This is what volunteering is. Sometimes you get a job that, is different than what you might have expected. The fact that you were in that position, I didn't realize that was the case, Bryson. Yeah. The fact that you were in that position and I could help you out makes me feel even better that I was able to actually do that. It was a funny situation because of the way it ended, but I'm really glad. I didn't realize you were under that kind of stress at that point. Like, I'm glad I could have helped. So cool. Yeah. So that's the origin story of Jerry and Bryson's long, fruitful friendship and relationship. It's all good. I love it. So, hey, Bryson, I wanted to pivot for just a hot minute. So, if we take a step back and look at the macro level picture, you and Tom start, you and Tom start ICS Village. You're constantly like every picture on Twitter. Go jump on his Twitter. It's like every other picture is like him sitting on a plane. He's like next to James McQuiggan at 35,000 feet. By the way, we call James McQuiggan at 35,000 feet because he's like usually tuning in to the daily brief from seat 3B. So he's just up there. I want to know, Bryson, like, you basically own a couple companies. You could sit back and just cash checks and be like, fat and happy. Like, what motivates you to push and volunteer and drive nonprofits and contribute to the community and make those sacrifices?
So I don't want to be fat. That's actually the Cyber Samurai character in 21.
Okay.
I noticed I had not quite kept up with my fitness during COVID when I looked at those shots, and I was like,
COVID was hard on a lot of people.
I'm going to work out again. So I don't ever want to be out of shape. And I don't think not doing anything would make me happy. So I need to help. I need to do stuff. It's built into me. But even more than that, I want to help others. So I get this question a lot. What would be next? And I'm already an angel investor in 12 companies. Mm-hmm. I teach entrepreneurship. If you Google entrepreneurial adventures, Bryson, you will see a lot of my talks. And that grew out of DEF CON 4 years ago, where I was like, nobody really understands the economics, the business organization behind cybersecurity. And, everybody's working at a company pretty much. Why don't we talk about that? And then from there, I started interfacing with folks who were like, hey, I want to start my own company. And I was like, well, let me see what I can do. And some of those folks, I decided to write checks. Some of them, I just helped them with the idea and introduced them to other folks. So I think there's always some part of me that wants to be involved, perhaps just not having to do all the work.
No, I love that. And I know one of the companies, I don't know if it's considered private or not, so I won't say it, but I know one of the companies that you're an angel investor in, and like great company, good people. So obviously you're doing good things for the community. I love it. It's the same reason that drives me, frankly. I noticed that you attended or spoke at Wild West Hackenfest in 2021. I've gone to Wild West Hackenfest in 22 and 23, and I'm actually like low key flex. Like I'm keynoting this year, Wild West Hackenfest, which is like a huge honor. Thank you. It's my favorite conference, Bryce, and it feels like a retreat than it does feel like a conference. But I haven't seen you there the last couple of years. Has it been conflicts? Not like John Strand, but I mean like scheduling conflicts and stuff.
Yeah. So John Strand and I are close friends. We've known each other for a number of years. John was the first customer ever at Scythe.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was a handshake with him and Geoff Thayer at DerbyCon 2019, I want to guess, that closed Black Hills as our first customer of Scythe. So I have a great respect. I mean, John is one of the smartest people in the space. John is also incredibly active. If you ever want to watch something funny, John and I have done this twice now. I think the last one was at Way West Hackenfest. We might have done it for a Unicon, which is our Scythe user conference that is usually around every April 9th, which is National Unicorn Day. And it's just no agenda. John and Bryson take questions from the audience and rant. And by rant, we do the teardown of what really works and what's not working on these things. Because there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt, aka marketing. There's a lot of perception. John and I have a lot of experience. So I think those are a really fun talk series that John and I do, where we just tear down whatever's going on in the industry to break it to what really is going on. But yeah, it's just, I'm a CEO. I have to go to certain places. I can't always go where I want to go. I love, there you go. That's the one we did at Way West Hackenfest. I brought a hoodie for John. So he's got my red hoodie and you can see me in the black hoodie.
Yeah, it's loading right now.
And one of the funniest comments he made when he put it on, he's like, he smells the hoodie. He's like, this smells really good. And I'm like, thanks, John. I'm glad you like my shampoo.
That's too funny. Yeah, John has, of course, as soon as I step away, it loads up. You can see here, this is John with the unicorn, rare unicorn sighting, John, mythic rarity level. of John. That's good. I'll have to see if I can maybe coordinate or facilitate and again, I know you're super busy, but I would love to put in the works a John and Bryson like Simply Cyber Live,
Yeah.
and just like I'll just throw out like I don't know, like
You want us to rant? We'll rant. Happy
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do
yeah.
it. Barry, this is a great idea. I love it. High five.
Okay. Yeah. Let us know in chat if you'd like to see Bryson and John Strand for an hour just losing their minds. Like I would let you know the Michael Jackson popcorn animated meme
Yeah.
or whatever. That would be me. Like it just we'll let it run forever. John actually keynoted. So Simply Cyber actually hosted our first conference this past November, and John graciously agreed to be the keynote speaker. And the title of his talk was something to the effect of like, there are no entry level jobs in cybersecurity. And it was basically just like, okay, everybody, like, I'm going to be real. And then it was like 30 minutes of just like straight rant and, but, you know, really poignant. And it was more about, understanding IT and fundamentals,
Yes.
like
Yep.
less about like, you can't start in cyber, but
no. Give me that rant too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Same thing. Is it? So, I mean, do you think, I guess just to take a minute on it, Bryson, I mean, do you think that there are entry level jobs in cyber? I know you'd mentioned earlier, and I agree that the market has kind of slowed down a little bit and there's some higher level jobs, but what do you think the biggest challenge is for that entry level segment?
So I do know there are some companies like here in Tampa. I know that they're plucking tier one SOC analysts right out of graduation, but I would say that's rare, and I'd say that also ties to their confidence, their relationship, and their connections with that staff and that program. In general, I think it is difficult to secure what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know how a computer works, how are you supposed to secure it? If you don't know how network traffic works, how are you supposed to be able to interrogate it and analyze it? So that's, to me, it's just, that's the way it is. You need to know this stuff. To me, on average, cybersecurity is a journey person's role. You've done a few years, you've done help desk, you've done sysadmin, you know how stuff works without having to Google everything. Not that Googling anything is bad. I Google stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've written papers on things and I like Google and I'm like, what did I write? I forgot. Like I just don't, it's not all there all the time, right? You only have so much RAM. So I'm not knocking that. The ability to Google and to teach is absolutely valid, but you need to just have enough experience and to know things to be able to be effective at the job.
I love it. And Null 418 is asking if the ICS part of the show is over. I mean, if you have a question, Null 418 around ICS, we definitely happy to answer it. We're just talking with Bryson about a couple different things, and most notably ICS Village and Hack the Capital, which is coming up there on May 29th. I'll bring that up again. I did want to ask one question while I prep some stuff, Bryson. What do you have? Like, do you have a guilty pleasure? Like, is there a guilty pleasure that, makes you happy?
Well, I love to cook.
Okay. Yep. I've seen that on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I'm either on a plane or I'm posting food porn. Also during COVID, I started Unicorn Chef, which was a cooking show with folks in the industry, but we also had professional chefs come on. We raised also a bunch of money. Every episode basically had two components. A guest had to pick a charity that we raised money for, and then the guest picked the recipe and we published it, and then we would cook it together. So that was the Unicorn Chef show. It's still on. I'm probably going to bring it back at some point. Just time is a factor. So I love food. I just think food is great. I love sharing food. I love making food for others, and I think I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, I mean, the things I've seen you post on have been pretty good. What do you have like go-to restaurants and like, so we have people in here from like Florida, like the Miami area. I know you go to Miami quite a bit for S4. We have people in here from like the DC, Maryland region where I know you spend some time. Is there any like go-to joints?
What would be my restaurants of choice?
Yeah, sure.
So since you mentioned S4, I set up a CEO dinner there this past one in March. Which, by the way, ICS Village ran the Vulnerability Management Pavilion. For those of you who don't know what S4 is, it's an industrial control system practitioner conference. So it's a very, James McQuiggan would be an example of somebody who would be at it.
Very niche.
Yeah, it's a niche practitioner conference. But I took folks. So it's on South Beach, although next year it's going to be in Tampa. Convenient for me. So I took folks more to the southern part of South Beach, where there's kind of like a mini little Italy, and there's some good restaurants down there. So instead of the traditional stuff that I think is more what people know, DC area, what would I recommend?
I mean, there's a lot of restaurants.
Yeah, I think the coolest thing I ever saw at DC was, I want to say it was at, I'm trying to remember the name of the restaurant. It now has a 1-star Michelin. When I knew it didn't have that yet. I can't remember the name of it. But the thing they had is they had pressed duck. So this is a special recipe that originated in Paris over 100 years ago, where they have this huge brass contraption and they basically squeeze the duck right there table side to create a sauce that goes with the duck.
That's made from the duck itself?
Yeah. So it's basically pushing the innards right there to turn it into, through pressure, into a sauce table side.
Damn, that's hardcore, man. That's a technique I'm not familiar with. But no, that's very cool. You like escargot, out of curiosity?
I eat everything.
Okay. Yeah.
One of my bucket list items is to eat everything on this planet. Caveat, that is edible, because people always like, "Oh, you want to eat?" I'm like, no, I want to eat stuff that's food.
Yeah. It wasn't there. Oh my God, like he's a famous chef, but he like travels all around and eats the weird stuff. He has glasses, bald guy, short. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, well, I mean, that was part of what Anthony Bourdain's bit was, and then there's a guy now. He wasn't I don't think he was a chef, but
maybe he was just a food critic.
Oh, Stanley Tucci.
Maybe. But yeah, anyways, like there's some wild stuff out there. Like food, I know this is a cyber program, but food has like become very popular mainstream in the last 10 years, like where the TV shows and the, diversity of those TV shows, it's not just cooking food. It's like exploring regions and areas and stuff like that. Oh, so good. And you travel quite a bit, so you get to actually eat food from all over the place. I love
sometimes. I get that a lot. Folks are like, oh, I'm like, no, sometimes you don't get to leave the hotel. So where I can, I mean, a great example. I was in Kathmandu in Nepal in 2019, because I had to be over there in the Middle East for some industrial control system work. And I was like, yeah, well, I can tack on 2 days. Kathmandu was a 4-hour flight. And to give you an idea of how far off the beat path I go, I literally was eating momo, which is the local Nepalese dumpling, with a family in a hut that they were cooking over a sterno.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay, that's as
I like to adventure. That is part of it. I do see that someone has a question here about how to transition from OT into IT.
Okay.
So I have good news for you. This is one of those things where it's actually good news, which doesn't happen too often in our space, right? You're always filled with existential dread. It is easier to transition from OT into IT than the other way around. IT folks are just, all the things they've learned, they are flummoxed by how different the world is. Confidentiality, integrity, availability, resilience, revenue, availability, safety. I mean, it's two different things. All of these unique protocols, all these unique control architectures, how things work, how it all goes together, completely different way. I think once you know the hard stuff on OT, it's easier to pivot into IT security, because you've already just naturally been aware of how IT works. I mean, you were already technically proficient. You owned a laptop, you owned a phone, you had all this stuff for decades. You just probably didn't have quite the professional, like bringing it all together. And so I honestly think that it's easier to make that transition. Now, finding the opportunity is the challenge. But as we look at, as I described, where I see a burgeoning job market, a lot of these asset owners, so folks that employ operations technology for mission or money, they are looking for folks to help with the challenge of convergence. They realize how this is a problem. They realize that they are vulnerable, that ransomware doesn't just sit on the IT side, it gets to the OT side. And so they're looking for folks like you.
That's awesome. Like, good to know. You heard it here from Bryson, who's like, an authority on the space. You can do it. A really specific question that came up a few minutes ago, Bryson, from Gary. Big fan of Gary. Do you know of any, any resources that can help you learn the comm protocols used in OT?
No, so that's hard because a lot of those communication protocols get proprietary.
Oh,
And
that
so
sucks.
yeah, and they're not published. So I mean, high level ones, DNP3, Modbus, learning to work in serial, are things that immediately come to mind, but that doesn't help you, right? So this is where I go point to the Sharon episode on Hack the Plant that just came out, and the advice to getting a home lab, because whatever that programmable logic controller has, most likely will have one of those protocols. Most likely will be a proprietary protocol. Will have the documentation, hopefully. I mean, buying it off eBay, hopefully you get the documentation to make it useful. And getting to do it is the best way to learn.
Jeremy Stevens wants to know, is there a ICS standard? This is a great question. Like SOC 2, FedRAMP, anything to say that this thing's minimum security level?
Yeah, so that was the ISA IEC 62443 standard I was talking about. That's probably the most common one that's used.
Okay. All right. So look for that.
Well, and that's like ISO, is proprietary. So I think it's like $1,400 to buy the standard.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, anytime you go to the ISO, people ask me all the time because I'm a big like GRC, proponent or whatever, and like NIST CSF all day long, and they're like, "What about ISO 27?" I'm like, yes, NIST is free. You can download that. So Bryson's going to be at RSA, which is just a few days away, 4 days from now. So if you're going to be in San Francisco, he's going to be actually giving a talk, which is pretty dope here. Shifting shadows, navigating the threat landscape. What could people expect from this particular talk, Bryson?
Yeah, so those ones at the top, those are our Scythe only talks. So we have our own suite, and we host our own breakfasts and happy hours. So you come and get free food, and you get to listen to some folks talk. And as you can see, we bring different folks from the community. You saw Tara Wheeler, you saw Jake Williams. I'm going to be more talking of just stream of consciousness on what I think about the threat. And then the two official talks I'm giving on the RSA stage are one, which you can see is on IT and OT with JJ Manella. And then Leslie and I are going to be giving a talk that I'd had in my mind for a couple of years, where I kept thinking about how an incident is basically a test in reverse. And so we're going to be putting that together with how Tabletop set it up, and then walking through the phases, basically going forwards and backwards of testing in an incident at the same time.
That's awesome. And many of you might recognize Leslie Carhart. I mean, she's done a million things for the industry, most notably, or most recently with Dragos, but she was the keynote at Wild West Hack and Fest last year. If you attended that conference, you might recognize her from that. I dropped a link to this RSA with Scythe there in chat, so you guys can jump on there if you are going to San Francisco. If you're going to go to RSA, why don't you just drop it in chat and let us know you're going to be there. It'd be interesting to see what kind of the spread is for the community. We're a couple minutes over time, Bryson, and I appreciate you giving me the grace of a couple extra minutes to roll over. Just to kind of finish out here, we wanted to talk about ICS Village. We wanted to talk about Hack the Capitol. Just to revisit, because a couple people have come in since we started the show. What's the 30-second pitch here on Hack the Capitol and what people should be doing?
In person in Arlington, Virginia, May 29th, free hands-on industrial control system training, which will hopefully turn into something we can take nationwide. 30th and 31st in Washington, D.C. is our policy conference. Don't glaze over at policy. We will make it easy to understand with agency directors, members of Congress, government, industry, and academia. There will be a virtual option to watch the stream, so if you can't make it in person. 30 seconds.
No, that was perfect. And I've just dropped a link in chat to this site that we're looking at right now, which is the official ICS Village Hack the Capitol 7. Just had a question. This is the 7th time you've been doing this annual conference. Has it grown? Has it expanded like over time? Have you guys incorporated lessons learned?
Yes.
I should have asked a not yes or no question. No, I'm sure it's improved, and it's good to see that you guys are in the Capitol. So hopefully you're getting some of that support from the federal. I know, Jen Easterly's been quite effective with her role at CISA, and I know Jen, and I've seen you do some talks with her and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that because you're doing it in DC, you're getting some of those policymakers and some of those individuals who don't have an excuse to not be able to go because it's right there, right?
You literally picked up on how we decided to do it and why we did it in Washington, D.C. Is we kept traveling everywhere. And I was like, why aren't we doing something here in D.C. where all of these people are? And that was the birth of Hack the Capitol. And I'm very excited for 2025. So this year we are at a law firm. We get 2 floors of the law firm. So we're able to, accommodate hundreds of people. I had really had my eye set on another location, but just couldn't make it happen. If it can happen next year, I am so excited about where the conference is going to go.
Okay, so there's a little tease. You're going to have to subscribe to Bryson's Twitter account because I'm sure he'll be dropping it there. It's at Bryson Bort on Twitter. I lost the link for it, but it's up there. It's at Bryson Bort. I have a little caption for it so you guys can pull it up. And through the official Scythe channels, I'm sure, but you're very active. You're very transparent, very accessible on Twitter. So I definitely appreciate that. All right, guys, we've been talking with Bryson Bort. We talked, dude, he's doing a million things, right? Co-founder of ICS Village, Scythe CEO, talking all over the place, and culinary master in the kitchen or in a hut, right? Depending on wherever you are. Thanks.
I will be posting pictures of mango shrimp shortly.
Oh, excellent. Any final thoughts before we call it, Bryson?
Jerry, I love to come on here. I explicitly reached out because I knew that this was, I thought, really great content for the kind of audience that you've uniquely put together. And I look forward to having Bea and John come on and take the entertainment to 11. Yeah,
everybody, the mods and everybody in the community are thumbs upping it multiple times. The emotes are getting spam, so it's going to happen. I'll send a follow-up email to you guys, but definitely excited for that. Thank you so much, Bryson. And to all of you in chat, thank you guys. We held strong. The conversation was great. The questions were fantastic. The support and inclusive statements everybody was throwing in there, phenomenal. The mod team, thanks for helping me manage the show. Definitely appreciate that. Guys, remember tomorrow morning, well, actually at 7 p.m. Today, the Slay Security Plus team is going to be doing their Security Plus live stream. So if you're studying for that, giddy up on that with Jesse Johnson and the crew over there. Tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern, I'll be doing the Daily Cyber Threat Brief where we are every weekday morning. I'm Jerry. He's Bryson over there. Until next time, y'all, stay secure. Thanks. Content. Keep the cybersecurity train going by connecting with the other Simply Cyber community resources. We have the Discord server that's lively and always keeps the conversation going. You can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. And also every single weekday morning on the Simply Cyber channel, we're doing live daily cyber threat briefings, 8 a.m. Eastern time, as well as Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We're doing live stream interviews with industry experts, and we produce videos that we push out every Wednesday morning. I'm Jerry from Simply Cyber. I hope you enjoyed the content.